Today I want to go over a few reasons why your space might not feel finished. I think a lot of times when people are decorating their home, whether they've been there for a while or are new to their home, there can be kind of like a point where you kind of feel stuck. Like, I don't know why this doesn't feel finished, but it just doesn't feel like it's fully decorated. And sometimes that could be because of budget reasons, or right now with like lead times for getting furniture and different decor items. So today I thought I would go over a few reasons why your room might not feel finished and how you can fix it. I'd say one of the most common things that I see in a room when people are decorating and they say that it just like doesn't feel finished or done is that they didn't hang curtains. They have no like window treatments on in their space. I think a lot of people avoid maybe hanging curtains, especially if they have blinds already, because they already have a window treatment and are not sure that they need another window treatment or like a layered window treatment like curtains alongside like pull down blinds. And I'm here to tell you that it makes such a huge difference in a space to layer in curtains. I know when I was working on redoing my mom's living room, it's been kind of a while now since I did that, but she was a little hesitant to adding curtains to the space because she thought that it would like block her view because she has these beautiful big windows. And as soon as we hung the curtains, she had this like aha moment, like, that's like what my space has been missing. Because curtains, they add this beautiful texture and organicness to a space, but they often also add a softness to it because they're physically fabric. And in rooms like, living rooms or just houses in general, they tend to be very angular and square and have lots and lots of lines in them. So adding a curtain to the windows really softens that look, as well as it can help be a space expanding trick to the eye when you hang your curtains right. So when you're hanging your curtains, you want to go as high as you can in a space, so close to the ceiling, maybe like 3 to 4 inches. Unless you have like a really high vaulted lofted ceiling, then you're gonna go maybe above the window like 6 to 10 inches depending on the scale of the window. And then you always want to hang your curtains past the window itself, so going anywhere from like 6 to 12 inches past the window frame itself when you're hanging curtains. So hang them higher and wider than the window all the time. And so you're going to shoot for using a curtain that is probably 90 something inches. Avoid the 80 something inch curtain lengths unless you have really short ceilings. Hang those curtains as close to the ceiling as you can if your measurement falls in kind of like the 80s number for the length of the curtain panel. Next up is side tables. This is probably the most common, obviously, in a living room versus like in a bedroom, but even a bedroom, like missing end tables or like nightstands really helps to like finish and kind of ground a bed space. But when we're talking like a living room, side tables, I think so often people will put in a couch or a sectional, coffee table, and then maybe a pair of chairs, and they forget the side tables. So when somebody is sitting in your house, they're going to have to like lean up and put their drink on just the coffee table. You want it so that when anybody's sitting in a seat in your home, so like anywhere on your sectional or couch or in a chair, that they have a spot that they can naturally set a drink down and they're not having to like get out of their seat to put that drink down or phone or whatever it is when your guests are around. It makes for a really kind of like obviously cozy type of practical environment. Obviously a coffee table is super useful to like the people in the center of your couch or sectional. If you have a large couch, throw in some end tables on either side. If your couch is floating in the middle of the room, maybe think about putting a sofa table behind it to add an additional place to add your beverage or set down your beverage. And then seats can share little side tables. So like if you have a pair of chairs, like a small little side table in between for a place for your guests to set or rest things down. This just makes for a really comfortable and practical place to host guests or even just enjoy with your family and friends. Another element that might be missing in your space is a variety of lighting. So a lot of homes will have like built-in overhead lighting, whether it's can lighting or like a single pendant or ceiling fan or something like that that has lighting built into it. add a lot more lighting options. So layer in lamps, whether it's a table lamp, a floor lamp, something that can really help you set a mood when it comes the sun setting, it's later in the day. There's nothing worse than having like those overhead canned lights on all the time. Even if you have a dimmer like we do on some of them, they just still are so bright in the evenings, and especially if when you're having guests over, it can feel kind of stark, and I feel like people just don't look as great under canned or overhead lighting as they do in beautiful lamp lighting. So having a like lamp option that is near like nearly all the seats. So if you're gonna sit down and read a book, think of like, what light could I turn on to then read my book? So this is in a bedroom, having 2 lighting options on either side of the bed. This is going to, be in that little side table in between 2 chairs. Maybe you have a sconce on the wall that's behind your couch, and then another lighting element lamp on one end of the couch. And so that you're really kind of able to set a mood, and it's practical, and you can use these lights when you're doing like single things like reading, or I don't know, knitting or writing or whatever it may be in the evening time when you aren't having natural light, but those overhead lights are now just too bright. I like to think of overhead lights as like my task work. So those are gonna be on and usually full force in like my kitchen, maybe my dining room because they're close to one another. Anywhere you're doing like tasks where you need good lighting. And then after that task is done, I turn them off and I turn on all my mood lighting in the evening. So I have a little lamp on my desk in our like dining area. Lamps in kitchens right now are just this really beautiful, like homey aspect to a kitchen I'm seeing. They're just like small little lamps, you just flick them on, and if you don't have a home that you have like under cabinet lighting, or sometimes you don't even have like a task light over the sink, adding like a lamp to your space can really create a cozy environment in the evenings. And there's nothing better than, I think, Chris and Julia from Chris Loves Julia blog, they call it like lamp o'clock, and to me that's like one of my favorite times of the day, which is the sun has now set and things are, or like it's starting to set and it's starting to get, your overhead lighting starting to feel really bright, so you flick those off and turn on all of your lamps in your house, and it just creates this vibe. And then a bonus is if you can add a dimmer switch to some of those canned overhead lights. I know my husband added a dimmer switch to our kitchen lighting, as well as in this room, which is our living room, that all have cans in it, and it just, they dim down, but they still don't get like dim enough in the evenings for me, because I like it to be just kind of that like hygge lighting vibe. So right up there with a lack of curtains in a space, I think people often have a hesitation to hanging artwork. So when you move into a new space, I get it. It's like putting a new hole in the wall is like kind of intimidating. And where do you start? What do I want to hang there? Do I need to curate more artwork? All these things kind of go through your head, but I think you just have to start putting things up on the wall. You can always change them. You can, if you're in a rental to use like the command strips, you can always change them out. And if you use those little nails that use like a little hook bracket, how do I show this? And then you put like the 2 little brass headed nails in it, they tend to leave like the tiniest of tiny little holes in your walls. So just start hanging things up on your walls. And if you don't feel like you have like a big statement piece that is, kind of can create a focal point in a room, add a gallery wall. Collect the smaller items that you have and put them together to create more impact in hanging on your wall. People ask me a lot of like, where do you hang artwork? And how do you know what wall to hang them on? And a good rule of thumb is thinking of like, what is your focal point in a space? And that, like a fireplace, or we kind of have 2 in this room because that is our TV, as well as we have the fireplace next to it. But then other things are like sight lines. So when you look into a room, what's kind of your sight line from the other side? So when I'm looking from my kitchen into my dining and living area, there's this one wall that I've added stacked photos to, and that helps kind of give you an idea of where you can hang artwork in a space is think of your different sight lines through a room. Another tip with hanging artwork is to go higher than you think or stack a few pieces of art. I'd say 2 to maybe 3 depending on the size of the frame. That will really create some height and keep your eye up and moving in a space. It'll give the illusion of taller ceilings, and if you do have taller ceilings, it keeps your eye kind of up as it moves around the room. Plants. I am a lover of all things plants. I think I finally have figured out my green thumb in my like mid-30s now. And I love plants, especially because this home we have a lot of lighting. We have like a bay of windows here and a bay of windows there. It's kind of feels like a sunroom, but it's like a living room. And so I'm excited to have so much natural light to add plants to my home, because at my previous house we didn't have as much natural light and I had to go with like lower light plants. Anyways, I digress. Adding plants to a room is often the same as like what curtains can do. They add a soft, textural, organic item to a space, because things, like I said, are very angular in home. So there's lots of lines and things are very linear, and adding a plant is essentially like creating a beautiful little sculpture in a corner. Plants like a beautiful fiddle-leaf fig, or this I think is a monstera plant over here. They just add this beautiful organic element to a space. They're a living element to a space, and I just feel like that feels very lived in, and you know, like someone lives in this space and has to take care of these plants. Another thing you can add are fresh flowers, or even like freshly cut branches from outside to a vase in a space. If you are not confident in your green thumb skills, you could also do like an artificial stems, but I'd say if you can get away with it, do some real plants in your space. They just feel better. I'd also say when you're adding plants to shy away from like a bunch of really tiny ones. Like I have one really tiny succulent there, which is nice to kind of layer in or like use as like a little trinkety accent piece, but try to go as big as you possibly can in a space for a plant, whether it's like a potted plant like that or it's a actual tree. Trees can just add that missing element that something like a living room or a bedroom needs to create this like softness environment where you just want to like hang out by the tree. Now let's talk rugs. Rugs in a space can make a huge difference in the overall like scale, look, feel, and just overall finished vibe of a room. More often than not, you see people who use small rugs like a 5x7. There's not a lot of uses for a 5x7. A 5x7 is great for if you have like a decent sized entryway, use a big rug there. 5x7s might go in like a bathroom if you have a large bathroom, but for the most part 5x7 rugs are not super useful in like your living space and your bedroom. In those spaces you're going to want to use at least an 8x10, pretty much buy the biggest rug that you can afford. And I would even go to say that like a 9x12 is like the biggest or like the smallest rug you should use in your living space. Granted, you have a living space large enough to accommodate that. An 8x10 can often live underneath a dining table that seats, you know, like a decent sized grouping of like 6 people or something like that. A 8x10 can live there, but if you have a sectional in your living room, you're pretty much always going to need a 9x12 size rug or bigger depending on your sectional. If you have a traditional sofa, you might be able to get away with a 8x10. The key here is making sure that when you place your couch on the rug, you want at least the front feet on the rug, if not the whole piece of furniture on that rug, and you want to have about at least 6 inches of rug on either side of your sofa to give you a good idea of scale. And having a larger rug in a space is really going to be a space expanding illusion. I think sometimes people think I can put a smaller rug in and it'll make the room feel bigger. It usually does the opposite and it makes a room feel smaller. And then sometimes you can find these funny like flying carpet rugs where it's like you have a 5x7 rug and it's just underneath the coffee table in the middle of a room, kind of just flying around. It are the furniture pieces that aren't on any of the surface of the rug. So make sure that you can get at least the front feet of your furniture on your rug, and then just go as big as your budget can afford. If you are putting a rug underneath your bed, a queen size bed is going to accommodate like an 8x10. A king size bed, you can kind of get away with an 8x10 depending on your room size. I know we did that in our previous home because we just had a small house. We couldn't actually put in a 9x12. It would like go up the wall. And when you have a king size bed, and 9x12 is probably the ideal scale to it, but sometimes your rooms just can't accommodate that. So at least an 8x10 with your queen or king. So my last tip is creating an edited color story. I think when you have too many colors going on, say like too many accent color pillows, or you've maybe like collected furniture over the years and are trying to pull it all together in a new space, editing down your color story in a room can really help to make it feel obviously more cohesive, because now the colors all kind of go together. And it's not that you can't still have a very colorful, vibrant space. I'd say just, you know, edit it down so that you are maybe working with at most 4 colors in a space. This will help you in creating like a whole mood in the room, as well as it gives you kind of a refinement in what items you can add to your space if you know like you're giving color story. Because I think when you start introducing too many colors, it can get too busy, and you can still have like a large impact with color if you kind of edit it down. I think it's almost more impactful when it's kind of an edited color story, and maybe you cover your whole walls in like a vibrant green or pink or something like that. I think that is more impactful than like 12 different colored throw pillows. So editing down your color story, and you can use a variety of shades within your colors too. So like let's say your color story is like a white and a black for neutrals and like a wood tone, and then you want to add in greens and pinks and like burnt oranges colors or something along those lines. And then you can use that color in its spectrum. So really dark greens to light greens to, you know, like those rusty pinky orangey tones to like a softer beigey pink, and those can create really beautiful color stories in a room. When you use the whole spectrum of a color in a space, and you maybe narrowed it down to like 2 colors that you're using, I think it can feel a lot more elevated and designed than if you use that same, like let's say green color at the same tone repeated through the space, using it in its, you know, light tone, mid-tone, and dark tone, and maybe changing up the textures of that color can really elevate the look of a space and the color story that you've created in a room. Again, all of these things are subjective. If you're like super into like pastels and you want this like beautiful pastel room, like go for it. Just go for it. I think that there is nothing more beautiful in interior design than when somebody runs with like what they love at like 100% or 110%. It just feels authentic, I guess, in interior design. So just sticking to what you love and what attracts you in your eye, and then, I don't know, kind of refining it a bit and adding layers and textures will really help to create, and the proper scale. Scale is so important in interior design. Will really help to make a space feel finished. So I hope you guys enjoyed these tips and found them useful. I will talk to you guys in my next one.